Súbele volumen. Conversation with the people who were with me. In the world TV. Carlos tonight. Historias de un reportero. Carlos tonight. Dale que viene lo bueno.
Hey everyone, welcome to Carlos Tonight. Thank you so much for listening on your favorite podcast platform, and thank you for watching here on YouTube, Facebook, and any other social media that you're checking us out on this evening. My guest this week, I'm very excited to welcome him. His name is James Daly. He owns two businesses. He is the head of an online music school, plus he loves mentoring and promoting healthy living. So joining me now from my old stomping grounds in California, James, how are you?
I'm good, Carlos. Thank you so much for having me on tonight.
How's California weather right now?
It's actually pretty cool. We had like a heat wave a little bit less than a month ago, I think. It got super hot, but other than that, it's just been, 70 and sunny. Can't complain,
Oh, I love it. So before we start in the interview, who's on your shirt?
Oh, this is Bach. It's funny. So like you said, I have two companies. The first is San Ramon Academy of Music, which is my online music school. And then the second is Powerful Piano. And actually I make these shirts. So I'm glad you asked me, it's a free plug. But this
Absolutely. I want one now.
Oh man, thepowerfulpiano.com. We still got a few of these left in stock. This is the great J.S. Bach, and I actually designed all the shirts myself. As a classical, musician, I went to school for classical piano. That's music cool. Holds just such like a special place in my heart, but I always feel like it's really hard for people to connect with classical music just because it's kind of like a us and them sort of association. So, right. I always thought, if I present the composers as like a more modern interpretation of what we think of as an artist, then maybe people would be interested to check out like a Bach cello suite or something. I don't know.
That's cool.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
All right. So tell us first what an online school is, an online music school.
Well, it's really cool. I think part of it is, what is that saying? Necessity is the mother of invention, right? Right. Because of COVID, so many things changed. I had just a private music studio where I was the piano teacher. And then, in March, everything shut down, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to go broke? Like, are all my students going to leave me? Like, oh no, what am I going to do? And, I feel very blessed. For a multitude of reasons, but in this case, I'm pretty young for a piano teacher. I'm in my early 30s. And most teachers with like a studio, like the size that I have, or just, the students like the level that I have, I've been teaching over a decade now. They're older. I won't call them old, but they're older. Yeah, let's just put it that way. So the technology aspect of stuff is kind of hard for them. So they were, there's a lot of people saying, oh, you can't teach a piano lesson online. And I was like, well, this is my only option. So let's see what we can do. And then after a little bit of research, some trial and error with my students, I actually realized that there's so many resources at my disposal as an educator that it got to the point where my students are actually making more progress in the online setting. And even after, like the pandemic ended, or I don't know if you consider it ended, but whatever, right. Life got back to normal-ish, I guess what we have right now. My students opted to stay online. They're like, yeah, this is way better. We make more progress. We don't have to drive. We don't have to do anything. And during the time, I had the epiphany of like, wow, I could hire more music teachers. And it was beautiful because I could interview people all over the country. So I have a piano teacher that lives in Buffalo, New York. I have a voice teacher that lives in Texas. I have another voice teacher that lives in Connecticut. So I've been able to find like educators that are not only, extremely educated and well-rounded, but they're just really good teachers and really good people and mentors, which to me is like the best part of being a music teacher. Yeah. Thank you.
So how big of a part did music play in while you were growing up?
Oh man, okay. I know these are short, so I'll try and give like a short answer, but music is everything, man. Music, it's such a cliche, music saved my life, but it really did. It really did. So I grew up in West LA, and, my mother is a classical musician. Her mother is also a classical musician. That's how I got into music lessons. or just playing music in the first place.
Right.
And my childhood was a little bit turbulent, single parent household, like kind of getting into trouble as a kid. I wound up actually dropping out of high school because I was like, you know what, this is stupid. I'm not learning anything here. I'm going to get a job. And my mom was like, all right, good luck with that. Have fun living on your own at 16. And I kind of realized that I made a mistake, but I took a class at community college for music because I wanted to write better music for my band. And then it opened up this like whole new world for me. And I was so motivated to study music that like I stopped, a lot of the bad habits that I had, the people that I was with. I started working and going to school full time. And I wound up actually getting a full scholarship to UC Berkeley for music after 2 years of study. And then from there, I was able to grow my practice teaching music, and Berkeley like took me around the world playing music. Like I've been able to play in like France and Spain and England and like see amazing things, meet amazing people, all just because I can play piano all right, which is pretty cool, man. So music has done everything. Music has really done everything for me,
I remember growing up in Chicago, in our neighborhood, there was one of our neighbors in front. During the summertime, her windows would all be open, and she was a music teacher, and she would sing. You know how they go, oh,
yeah, mommy made me mash my M&Ms is the classic. Yeah.
So she was doing that and the piano, and as a kid, you don't like realize, oh, it's just this lady with loud music. But for me, I was just like, wow, that's like amazing, and I love, the sound of it, and of course, being Latino, I grew up with Spanish music in the house while mom is cooking, while dad's cooking, grandma's cooking. Like it's just, I've been a big part of my youth, if I can talk.
You're good. I think that's one of the coolest things about music. Like everyone has a relationship with music. Like you don't have to be a musician to appreciate music, and I think it's one of the oldest traditions in like human history. I think we had music before we had language, which is kind of a trip to think about, and there's just something that we connect with as people with like, and it's trippy when you kind of get into the physics of sound because like making music is like manipulation of sound wave and air, and like we're water, which could be manipulated by air, so it has like a tangible effect on the human body, what that is, how that, I don't know, that's above my pay grade. I just play the piano and teach it. But I know, and we all know, like when you hear that song, you think about those memories, you know what I'm saying? Like there's just something so powerful about that, Yeah.
Do you ever get asked like what your favorite genre is? I know when I do, there's certain genres I don't like, but I never say that because I do appreciate it.
See, that's a great question. I get asked that quite often, and it's such a cop-out. I listen to everything. There's certain things I listen to more, but, like, I mean, I love classical, like Chopin. Obviously, I'm wearing a Bach shirt. I play a lot of Chopin, Rachmaninoff, a lot of Liszt, Franz Liszt. But, I grew up listening to, like, hip-hop. The band that I was in when I took that music class was a punk band, so I grew up in the punk scene, playing hardcore music, playing like extreme loud music. I also play guitar and bass. I taught myself a few instruments besides piano as well. But I really am down to listen to anything. Like one of my favorite songs is like by George Strait, who's like a super famous country musician. So it's not my like the thing I listen to all the time, but I'll listen to country. I love listening to EDM. It's like it's a cheap answer, but it depends on the setting that I'm in. Like if I'm chilling and just vibing, I'll put on some like lo-fi hip hop beats. If I'm like driving in the car and like I got a nice sound system in the car, so like I'll listen to some like old 90s hip hop or like some of the new trap hip hop or something that just blows out the bass in the back. If I'm cooking or in the kitchen, maybe some classical music or some jazz. If I'm working out, like death metal. So, it's all based on situation, I would say.
That's awesome. I forgot what I was going to ask you. Oh, no, I do. I noticed you have a lot of tattoos. Is there any art that represents music on your body?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I was just curious.
Definitely. My first tattoo, it was so funny. I got my first tattoo done when I was 16, and I remember like coming home, my mom was just like dead face, like, oh,
Furious.
That's cute. And then, yeah, well, it was funny because she knew that if she reacted, I would have gone out and gotten another one immediately. Been like, oh, this got her to do something. So she just had this like deadpan expression, like, that's kind of cute. And then like turned around. We talked about it like years after, and she's like, dude, I was so pissed at you. But yeah, so like my first tattoo is a Bach cello suite on my ribs. It's like a robot playing bass, playing a Bach cello suite. Okay. And then like on this arm, I have like some Chopin sheet music. My sister and I have matching hand tattoos of treble clef and some eighth notes. It's funny because she's like a mom. She's like in her late 40s. It was her idea. She's like, let's get matching tattoos. I was like, all right, where? She's like, let's get hand tattoos. I was like, damn.
It's always good to have a sister like that.
Yeah, I love Anne. She's a dope sister, man. She's real tight. So yeah, so cool. You know, music tattoos kind of everywhere, interspersed with the iconography of the other tattoos for sure.
Oh, nice. All right. So how does it feel sharing your passion of music with the kids?
Man, it's truly like a vocation. You know what I'm saying? It's not just like a job. And that's why I started the company in the first place, you know, because, you know, I work a lot, you know, because I still teach full time, but I run the school. So I do the administrative stuff. We have like a team of people, you know, so I'll put in like an 8, 10, 12, 14-hour day sometimes. But the fact that I get to connect with these kids and like have an impact, a tangible impact on them is just, it's such a humbling privilege. It's truly a privilege to be trusted to that extent, you know? And one of the cool things about piano lessons is that you'll have students for years. Like if you're good and your kids really connect with you and they like you as a person, you know, I just had a student finish. He's in college this year now, and I taught him for like 9 years. Wow. You know, and it was crazy. Like our last lesson, you know, we both got emotional or like all teary-eyed. I was like, I miss you, man. Like talk to me when you do some cool stuff after school. You know, I want to hear about your wins. But it's really a privilege. There's something that's so beautiful about this job, and that's why I hired the teachers that I hired, because I feel like they all have that same ethos, you know, when it comes to instruction and the impact that we can make on these kids.
What's the name of the school?
San Ramon Academy of Music.
Okay, that should have been my first question.
No, you're good. We can tag it back. SanRamonAcademyMusic.com if, you know, anyone wants to book a trial lesson with one of our students. So we're based in San Ramon, California, but we give lessons internationally, which is awesome. So
you mentioned this earlier a little bit. How does music help in a child's development or anybody's development?
Well, I think that there's like, you know, there's the studies, right? There's tangible carryover to mental processing skills, because most people don't realize, like, especially when you're playing from sheet music, you're doing so much at once, and like your pattern recognition just has to be like next level. So like sight reading, for instance, like when you're reading music for the first time and playing it at the piano, you're literally doing like 20 things at once. Yeah. And the process of going from good to great at anything, you use this mental thing called chunking, where you basically take like a lot of small tasks and turn it into one task. So we call it sight reading, but like I said, you're doing 20 things. So anything that has to do with like language comprehension, mathematics skills, pattern recognition. So there's a direct carryover. And like, I think part of the reason I got that scholarship to Berkeley was because I was so into music. Like I got a 4.0 in community college. It was easy, you know? And because of my music study, taking tests was really easy. It's really easy for me to memorize information and give it back. And again, I don't think I'm like, a genius or super intelligent in that way. It's just that music study had that direct impact on like my mental processes, just how I sift and sort through things. So I think when kids start young, man, you're giving your child not only the gift of music, but you are giving them like a head start on what they're going to be measured up against for the rest of their life in terms of scholastic and academic achievement, you know? And then the flip side of that though is like the better part, which is like the lessons that you get from music, because music really is a vehicle for life, you know, like learning patience, learning empathy, understanding the value of hard work, dealing with temporary failure, like everything that you get, you know, as a life lesson, you get in music study and overcoming things, you know?
I wish I knew you when I lived in San Diego, because my roommate had a piano like the one you have behind you, and then I would have been playing the piano right now.
Bro, it's never. I always tell this to people. It's never too late to start, man. It's never too late. And we actually have quite a few adult students at the school, and I love that, because there's a few people that took music lessons as a kid or wanted to start for the first time, and it's just so cool to be able to offer that to people.
I have a friend named Don who plays the piano, so I'm gonna hit him up after this interview.
Please do.
All right. What would you? Let's talk about your other business and how do you juggle both?
Man,
I bet it's hard.
It is, man. I feel
when do
like
you sleep?
Dude, you should ask my fiance, bro. She's like, I'm the fifth thing on your list. Like, you have your businesses, you have playing piano, you have the gym, and then it's me. And I'm like, no, babe, it's not like that. But it kind of is sometimes. It's tough. I think one thing that I've really learned, especially as I've gotten bigger, like, it was easier when the school was smaller, and the Powerful Piano was smaller. I read this book, and I always advocate to continue to read. I think reading is just so important. So I'm always reading something. This book that I read, though, is called Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. And it totally kind of changed my mind and thought processes about task delegation, the purpose of building a team. And by reading that book and by kind of implementing some of the things, I've been able to delegate a lot more to other people within the business, which allows me to do the things that only I can do, So it is a lot, but at the same time, I'm able to do all of it because I have other people doing stuff. So it's not just me, and I have an amazing team that it's really a symbiotic relationship. It's not just like they work for me and they get a paycheck, but I'm getting something of intrinsic value from them and they're getting something of intrinsic value to me. So it's like trying to meet people, on that level. So it's like for my teachers, for my administrator, my assistant, our social media manager, our web developer, our marketing coordinator, like all of those people, bring something unique, but because they get something unique from me, it's like they want to keep coming back. It's not just like, oh, I got to do this because I'm getting paid. We're all like motivated, and we get paid obviously because the lights are on,
Right.
But yeah, so to answer your question, task delegation and really understanding how to build a good team of people.
The internet's working, so that's good, right?
Hey, yeah, we're still here. So far, so good.
Would you call it easy being an entrepreneur, or does easy come at any point?
No, never. Never. You got to be built for it. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. And you'll know. And it's the same thing I tell my students. Like, my goal is not to make professional musicians. I want students that are like well-balanced humans that can play music. Mm-hmm. Like, I would love for my students, like the student that I just had graduate, he's an amazing pianist. He finished all these international certificate grades and stuff, like ABRSM grade 8, and it was just like a big deal. But he's going to school for engineering at Purdue. He's like a super, super smart kid. And I just hope he plays piano, the only time I tell them, like, be a musician is like, if you feel like that's the only thing you can do, like if that's the only thing you can do, you won't be happy if you do anything else, then pursue that. And I feel like being an entrepreneur is the same thing. Like, if you feel like you can never work for someone else, you feel like the only thing you can do is your thing, then you got to do it. But if there's anything on the fence, you may want to think of something else, because it's hard, it's lonely, nobody understands what you have to do. Your friends, your family, your significant others, nobody understands what that's like. Yeah. But when you have those goals and you have those dreams, like, you got to chase it. You just got to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So based on your experiences, what would you say is the key to being a successful entrepreneur?
One, good mentors. Like, I wouldn't be anywhere without the piano teachers that I've had, the guidance counselor. Like, for instance, the guidance counselor I had in high school when I was dropping out was the one that told me to take the music class at the community college. So like, I would have just not done anything without Miss Trina, you know what I mean? Or like the piano teacher that I had in college, that when I went to school, like, I was not a great music reader. I was so behind the ball because I had spent some time away from like structured music like that, and the way she believed in me and motivated me. And now I have multiple business mentors that like help me out when I talk to them. I'm like, well, I'm thinking about doing this. And they're like, no. I have a financial mentor that's like really taught me how to understand like what a P&L is, how to balance a book, how to use QuickBooks, like how to be a business owner, So I think there's this saying, when the apprentice is ready, the mentor appears. So, just doing what you need to do, putting yourself in situations where you can find a good mentor. I think mentorship is super important. And then mentally being very strong, but like learning how to forgive yourself, I think was something that this book talked about. And I think that's such a powerful thing because you're going to screw up. Like I've made so many mistakes along the way, I feel like I've kind of like
that's how we learn, right?
Exactly. But if you let that like hold you down or make you reticent to make your next move, like, it's not just a mistake, it becomes like a failure, and like mistakes are your greatest teachers. It's just when a failure is only a failure when it's like a permanent situation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would definitely say, those two things. And shoot, if I had to add anything else to that, it's constantly trying to educate yourself. Like I learned so much about business. There's another great book called The E-Myth Revisited. I love that book because it taught me and it was recommended to me by a business mentor, by the way. So there you go, the two kind of coming back in. But like you can learn it, you can do it. You just have to be humble enough to realize, like, all right, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, so I should probably educate myself. But like reading that book taught me about documentation and processes, building a culture within a business, so many things that you don't know or think about just as like, as a piano teacher. I wasn't a business owner,
Yeah, I don't know where I would be if I didn't have any like mentors, and they play an important part. And it seems like from our discussion that if somebody wants to start and wants to be an entrepreneur, do your homework, right? Research.
Yeah, it's never given. It's never given to you. Man, when I first started teaching piano, I charged like $20 an hour. Like I didn't make anything. And then even before that, I worked as a music director at the school in East Oakland. And I worked full time and I got paid so little. I lived on credit cards. You know what I mean? Like you have to like put in the dues, but like the stuff that I learned, from those initial first lessons that I taught, the stuff that I learned from teaching in that environment at that school in Oakland, like I'm so grateful for it. So I feel like, you got to cut your teeth somewhere. You got to deal with some crappy circumstances at first. And it's just what it is. It's non-negotiable. One of my mentors calls it the illusion of choice. Like you think there's a choice, but it's like, are you an entrepreneur? Okay. So then all that other, that's not a choice. None of that is. You have to do it. You know what I mean?
Do you often look back and kind of reassess and think to yourself, oh, I could have done it this way or could have done it that way?
To a point, because I think self-evaluation is very, very healthy. And, I'm big into like, meditation practice and stuff. And like, people get kind of weird with the spirituality stuff. I just think it's important to like know yourself and spend some time with yourself every day. So like a lot of times, like when I meditate or I journal, I do think about those things, but again, learning how to forgive yourself, right? So you take the lesson from it. You're like, you know what, next time I'm gonna do it like this, and just not holding on to the mistake and just being like, all right, I accept it is what it is. I'm gonna be better next time. You just let that go. And you're like, next time I'm gonna crush it, but I think
absolutely.
I think it's that balance. I think you have to, and that's what being a musician is. Like if you played the song crappy, you better know why you played it crappy. You can't just be like, all right, that was cool. Practice is over. I'm awesome. And then call it a wrap. Like you got to be honest with yourself, but I've had this one student for years, and, I've been working on his confidence for so long because when he was younger, he would make a mistake and he just put his head in his hands and be like, no, I can't keep going. I was like, dude, you got it. We're on stage, man. You got to pretend like we're on stage. You can't stop. It's okay. You can't let the mistake derail you. So I just think that's like a good, analogy for the question. You gotta be honest, but you can't stop playing. You gotta keep going.
So these young people look up to you. You're their mentor. What inspires you? What gets you out of bed?
Well, I think that responsibility, because to be a mentor, you have to lead by example, right? You're not going to go to a fat personal trainer. You know what I mean? Like, if you're like, yo, I want to get in shape, like, you're not gonna learn from a dude that's like sitting on the couch eating donuts. Like, it just doesn't work like
You
that,
know
you
what? I
know?
was thinking about that when I was at the gym not too long ago, and some guy was just offering up advice, and I always thought to myself, I'm like, why don't you take your own advice,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because it's like, I don't get it.
So that's exactly it, you know? Like, you have to embody that you want these kids to be, you know? And I think I'm not perfect, so I never present myself as such, and I make a point to illustrate my failures, well, at least like my mistakes, right? My shortcomings, the things that I'm weak at to my students. So it's not like, oh, I'm this great person and you should be like me. It's just like, you know, I'm striving to be better and here's how I'm doing it. And here's, you know, some of the things that I've struggled with. And I hope you don't have to. And I hope you can take that lesson and kind of move forward. But I definitely feel that responsibility also as a business owner too, because like it's interesting, you know, like I have people relying on me for their well-being, you know, like if I don't do what I need to do, they can't feed their families, they can't keep their lights on, you know. So I think there's inherent responsibility, you know. I'm getting married in a month, super stoked about that, you know. We Oh, thank you, brother, I appreciate that. We've been together like almost 10 years, you know, starting a family, and it's like that responsibility gets me out of bed, you know. And I'm so blessed and I'm so lucky because like, you know, I remember coming up and my mom, man, I owe my mom a lot. Like she would get up, drive me to school, drive to downtown LA, drive back, drive me to the piano lesson, drive home, make dinner, go to sleep, and then wake up at like 5 a.m. again, you know, just to keep everything going, just to keep me doing what I needed to do.
Wow, that's similar to what my dad did for me when I was in college. I was he would get off of work around 11, and then he would go to bed, and then around 2:30 the alarm would go off, and then he would take me to my internship at NBC5 in Chicago because I was doing the morning show. And I always thought to myself, holy God, like, wow, thank you, Dad. So a similar story with your mom.
Exactly, you know, and that level of sacrifice where you're just like,
Yeah.
wow, like I owe it to myself to be a better person and to like show you that this wasn't just for nothing, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm so lucky because I love what I wake up to do, you know. I don't have to get up and like, you know, do construction, you know what I'm saying, or like a super hard labor job. Not to say that construction workers don't like their job, but it's not like something where I'm like, man, like my back is killing me, like I gotta get up and do this thing, you know, or like, oh, I gotta work this job I hate with the coworkers that I can't stand and my evil boss, but it's like I gotta provide for my family, so I gotta suck it up. You know, it's like I have an awesome existence and I get to do what inspires me. So
that's awesome.
You know, there's no free lunch. Like you got to do the work. You know what I mean? You got to do the work, but it's like I like this work, you know, so I can't complain.
So you mentioned the gym, and then at the top of the show, I mentioned that you like to promote healthy living. So how do you do that? How do you live a healthy life? So you seem really busy. How do you fit the gym in there?
Man, you know, I tell this to my students all the time, whether it's about practice, whether it's about habits they want, like if you want to do it, you'll make time for it. So like the last time that I did a round of hiring for the school, you know, the normal gym time that I had to use to interview. So I started going to the gym at like 5:30 in the morning. I was like, all right, I got to go to sleep earlier and I got to wake up earlier to get my 2 hours at the gym. Like it's not, again, illusion of choice. It's non-negotiable. You know, and as someone that's an artist and a musician, we tend to have addictive personalities. So I think that it's really important to have positive addictions. Like that book, well, I've said a bunch of books now, but the book, Barking Up the Wrong Tree, he talks about why a drug addict and a Fortune 500 CEO are almost identical people personality-wise. It's just the way that their personality is, the feedback loop that their personality is in and the environment that they're in that kind of creates their circumstances. So, you know, to most people trying to get healthy, trying to like work out, lose weight, trying to eat right, like, you know, I've helped a few friends, like friends with this just in general, but it's like start slow and just slowly make things a habit. There's another book,
right?
Exactly. It's this book called Atomic Habits. I think it's by James Clear. I think that's his name. But I actually have my high schoolers watch the YouTube summary because I'm like, I know y'all ain't gonna read this huge book. But like, at least watch the 30-minute video. But he has this concept in there. It's called breaking the chain, and like the number one thing you don't want to do is break the chain of consistency. Mm-hmm. So like and I tell this to my students, he calls it a 2-minute rule, right? So like, what's the minimal amount that you can do to have done the thing? Because even if you don't get the full workout, all right, you went to the gym and like you went in the sauna, or you went in the gym and you like did one exercise. You sat at the piano and you did one warm up. Chances are you're probably going to do the rest of the practice. If you're really, really not into it, that's okay. Because at least you went through the motions, you did the thing. And you know what? Tomorrow you're probably going to do it like fully, so using the 2-minute rule, I think is really, really helpful for people trying to build consistency. Because, Rome wasn't built in a day. You can't just be like, all right, I'm jacked and tan now. That's it. It doesn't work like that. And, for me, like I said, it's just kind of taking it to the extreme. So, I started doing competitive weightlifting like 5-ish years ago. And I've just been really dedicated to that. And balancing it with business is hard, but it fixes everything. Like my diet, I've been weighing my food for like the last like 6-7 years, because it's just a habit now. I like eat a certain way, I train a certain way, I sleep a certain way, I mitigate stress a certain way because of how it affects my weightlifting, and then it affects everything else positively. Wow. But yeah, it's pretty cool the way like stuff kind of has this trickle down effect. Like everything in your life is interconnected.
Wow. So after talking to you, I'm so inspired that I want to learn to play the piano. I want to open up my own business, and I'm going to go hit the gym really hard.
Let's go. Let's go. 2-minute rule, man. Just like, little bit by bit, but get it in, bro. Get it in. You'll be surprised.
Where can people find you and your businesses and learn all about you?
Okay. So for music lessons, we have San Ramon Academy of Music.com. There's a contact form on there. I actually still handle all of the customer inquiries personally myself because I love that interaction, And then if someone wants to find out about Powerful Piano, we offer learning resources that are actually free for students. We also have like shirts and teaching materials and stuff for sale there, thepowerfulpiano.com. And then the Instagram is the same. So The Powerful Piano, same thing for the school Instagram as well. But the best place to find us would be either on Instagram or one of the websites.
Awesome. And that shirt too, right?
Yes, we got the Bach shirt, we got the Beethoven shirt, and then in a few months we're going to drop another composer. It's a secret, but hopefully, get some follows on social media so people can figure out the next composer coming up.
That's cool. I will commit to buying one because I like that shirt. It's cool.
Thank you, man. That makes me so happy because part of the thing I was like, man, I just want to make something that like someone just wear. They're like, someone's like, who's that composer? And they're like, I don't know. I just thought it looked dope. Like that's
right.
If I could get someone on that level, like we're doing something good,
Awesome. All right. Well, James, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Continued success, and God bless you.
Hey, God bless too, man. Thank you so much for having me.
And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for watching and for listening to this episode of Carlos Tonight. It was written and produced by yours truly, Carlos Correa. My theme by Sken Galis. Remember, you can always head over to my website, carlostonight.com. There you can find more information on the podcast, see upcoming guests, and check out past episodes. That's carlostonight.com.
Dale que viene lo bueno.